10 Things I Hate About You is a comedy/romance film that is rated PG-13. It came out in 1999 with Gil Junger directing the film. It stars Julia Stiles as Kat Stratford and Heath Ledger as Patrick Verona. 10 Things I Hate About You won MTV's Movie Award for Best Breakthrough Performance. Also, fun fact, did you know that 10 Things I Hate About You is a modern adaptation of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew? Looking at 10 Things I Hate About You intersectionally, let's answer the question, is 10 Things I Hate About You intersectionally feminist? If I had to ruin my favorite movie for myself, let me ruin it for you too. Before we get into what 10 Things I Hate About You did right and wrong, I'll give a brief summary of the film. Kat and Bianca are siblings with a very strict dad and an estranged mother. They're very much opposites, with Kat going against societal norms and Bianca caring too much about societal norms and how she is perceived. Cameron is new to their school, and upon seeing Bianca, becomes infatuated with her. He learns French just because she needs a tutor and he wants to be by her. His friend, Michael, helps him come up with a plan to get them together, using Joey as a pawn since Joey also wants to go out with Bianca. They need Patrick's help also, since Cameron can only date Bianca if Kat is dating as well. They influence Joey to pay Patrick to take out Kat, while Cameron tries to take out Bianca. This plan doesn't seem to be working or going to plan at all until the party scene, where Bianca realizes that she doesn't really like Joey that much because all he does is talk about himself, and the minute that she dismisses him, he turns to the closest person for attention. Kat tries to have a heart-to-heart with Bianca, telling her that her and Joey used to have a past, but it falls on deaf ears. At the prom, Kat and Patrick make up, but it's only temporary until Joey reveals that he's been paying Patrick to take out Kat. Bianca beats the shit out of Joey at the prom, which is a fun scene to watch. The movie ends off with Kat reading a poem that is about Patrick, in which she breaks down during. He gets her a guitar and they make up. I know I kind of dumbed down the ending by saying he gets her a guitar and they make up because she has been wanting to be in a band, and it really is like a cute romantic moment, but I'm just trying to get through the summary as fast as I can. This has been one of my favorite rom-com/movies for the longest time, but looking at it through an intersectionally feminist lens, I noticed that this film is so sexual for a movie being about high schoolers when it really shouldn't. They could have made it about college students or like adults at least. Like, they didn't need to even really be in school. That part really didn't matter. You could like replace prom with just like, I don't know, like Bianca would definitely be in a sorority. I feel like you could just replace it with a sorority event or something. And don't some colleges have a prom or like homecoming anyways? Like, I feel like that could have been worked around rather than sexualizing characters that are minors. And not only that, I would kind of add on and say that their dad's overprotectiveness kind of steps over the line into sexualization, because even when they talk about going to a party or even just talking to a boy, their dad imagines the worst and just overly sexualizes them. And he even has a pregnant belly that he makes Bianca wear so that she doesn't want to have sex. This movie is so fun to watch when you really just turn your brain off and enjoy it, but when you really dissect it, it truly is problematic for how many tropes it reinforces and for the over-sexualization of minors. Being a romance film from the 90s, 10 Things I Hate About You portrays many tropes. First, Kat gives in to the angry feminist trope, as she's shown to hate romance, and because of this, people at school have named her, quote, heinous bitch. Bianca, on the other hand, is the ideal male gaze. Put a pin in that. Cameron describes her as pure, only from how she looks. Michael then uses it against her / as a reason to not like her, saying, quote, where there's a snotty little princess wearing a strategically planned sundress. He uses her outfit against her. We also have Chastity, the black best friend that just gets ignored, until the party scene where she takes Joey from Bianca. It shows that she's a pretty shallow character, as they waited to use her until they needed her for the plotline to push Bianca's story forward. Patrick reflects the typical bad boy trope we see in Hollywood, and he has an extreme rumors spread about him, that aren't true just to reflect that trope. And we also see the pretty stupid boy trope through Joey. Another trope I noticed is the angry black man trope through the character Mr. Morgan. He is the teacher who sass talks every student in every scene he gets. Lastly, I see that they use the grand gesture trope the most, where Patrick is singing in front of the school to get Kat back, and also the guitar at the end of the movie that I mentioned. And also Cameron learning French for Bianca, and also just that whole plan of setting up Patrick with Kat so he can go out with her. Almost all the characters have a trope that is reflected through them, but this movie has been critiqued the most over Kat's angry feminist trope. Put a pin in that. I mentioned earlier that Bianca fits into the male gaze, but let's talk about that a little more. With the first interaction of her and Cameron calls her pure just from the sight of her. I just want to mention quick that I noticed that she wears a lot of white and red in this film, and white symbolizes her purity and red symbolizes her love and power. In this first scene, she's wearing a white and red dress. I think that this shows her power is in her purity in a way. Her purity is what makes her so appealing, and that's Joey's reason as to why he wants to be with her. Additionally, Bianca falls into the Eurocentric beauty standard with her light complexion, her straight hair, and her small nose. Kat also has a light complexion and a small nose, but she has curly hair and she's portrayed as the angry feminist girl. I see the female gaze through Patrick. The reason for this is that he never wanted to change Kat's anger or how she reflected it. He never wanted to change her, but he wanted to understand her. I know I'm not alone in this feeling, as a lot of people who like this movie also like Patrick, and a lot of times the romance leads that we love are because they're yearning for who the girl is, and they don't want to change her. Another example of this that comes to mind is Conrad from The Summer I Turned Pretty. Also, I think what makes Patrick so appealing to the women audience is how open he is that he wants Kat. For example, the scene of the grand gesture of him singing in front of the school, that's him loudly wanting Kat despite her not having a good reputation at school and being known as, quote, a
heinous bitch.
And that openness is what makes him so appealing compared to Cameron. Let's talk about Cameron for a second, because I don't think that he fits into the female gaze as well as Patrick does, and one of the main reasons being is that Bianca is clearly just not into him and he keeps pushing with her. And when we look at this scene where Cameron drops her off at her house after the party, he's just dogging on her for not wanting him. And he even uses learning French for her against her, like she asked him to do that when she never did. Like, he just overheard that she needed a tutor and decided to learn French so he could be by her. I hated how Bianca never wanted Cameron, and he kept pushing her, and he called her selfish despite her rejections. And while he isn't wrong that Bianca is a selfish character, we need to recognize that he is too. He didn't think about how it would affect Kat having someone pay Patrick to take her out. He was too infatuated with Bianca. And while Joey is the antagonist of this movie, he also uses him as a way to get Bianca. Cameron gives me the same energy as Steve from Sex and the City, where if you really look at their actions and what they're doing, and if you apply it to real life, it's weird and not romantic or appealing at all. The constant persistence would be concerning to a point, and we're meant to feel bad for these men because the women are portrayed as selfish for not wanting them. If you aren't familiar with the Dark Fantastic Cycle, it's a 5-step model developed by Ebony Elizabeth Thomas, where she analyzed the representation of Black female characters in young adult fantasy. The cycle describes how the characters are usually subjected to a pattern of 1. Spectacle, visible racial difference. 2. Hesitation, disruption of immersion by their presence. 3. Violence. This can be either literal or symbolic violence, but usually when it's literal, it leads to the character's death. And 4, haunting. This is them haunting the narrative, but it usually pushes the white character's storyline further. And 5, emancipation, their eventful freedom, although the last step is rare. Looking at Chastity's character, she's a character that lacks depth. They don't give her any character besides being Bianca's sidekick until she turns against Bianca. And I really, really, really wish they gave Chastity a motive other than Joey, because Bianca is shown to be an overly selfish character, even towards Chastity, and they could have gave her more character depth by showing a connection between the two and her choice of turning on Bianca. You can see Chastity fall victim of the dark fantastic cycle as she's labeled as the secondary antagonist of the film, and even if you go on her wiki fandom, it says that she's portrayed as a villain, and the only scenes of her are to push Bianca's storyline further, like when she leaves the party with Joey. I also noticed that Joey's tanner than the rest of the cast and that he's the main antagonist of the film, which subconsciously reinforces colorism since the two antagonists are both darker complexions. So that leads us to the question I asked at the beginning. Is 10 Things I Hate About You intersectionally feminist? And no, it is not. Kat portrays white feminism as she's a white, upper-middle-class feminist character who's unaware of her own privilege. And her teacher, Mr. Morgan, points this out, and when he does, he's portrayed as the antagonist to her feminist views. Additionally, I wish that this film brought Kat and Bianca together more. They seemed at such a disconnect, and then just a sudden connection at/after the prom, that it feels like there was a scene deleted that was crucial. And I've had this feeling ever since I watched the movie for the first time. It focuses solely on the sisters' independent relationships, bringing them together, but it feels out of place and out of nowhere. Like they don't have that special talk, I feel like, that really brings it together. And while the film does have moments that pass the Bechdel test, those scenes only reinforce more tropes and stereotypes. Like the scene where Bianca and Chastity are talking about shoes and bags, or the arguments between Kat and Bianca usually reinforce Kat's angry feminist stereotype. And if they didn't solely focus on Kat's storyline and have every single character reflect a trope, maybe 10 Things I Hate About You could have been a more intersectionally feminist film.